Hello, I'm Lloyd, and we're here today to talk about magnetizing Warhammer 40k miniatures, specifically the Norn Emissary. So first off, we'll talk about the tools that I use for this project. Any standard pin vise, any standard hobby knife, wooden sticks, a digital caliper, green stuff, and drill bits. So first, we'll talk about using the hobby knife. Other than shaving that we're all accustomed to, using a hobby knife to drill your pilot hole is one of the easiest parts to make sure that you're drilling your new hole properly and correctly. And you'll take your drill bit, your hobby knife, set it on the point where you want, and then just apply a little bit of pressure and rotate it until you're satisfied with the pilot point that you started just using the hobby knife. Then you can take your pin vise with the drill bit in it and then get going with the actual hole that you want to be drilling. Now any pin vise will do. This is a cheap one from Amazon, but you can use any one that you're comfortable with. If you do decide to get something like a cheap Amazon pin vise, I would recommend that you then go ahead and purchase from somewhere else a set of small drill bits. The drill bits that came with my pin vise, the tip was cut only like this at an angle, and it didn't have the regular V shape, so it didn't want to drill holes properly. As opposed to something like this, there are tools called PCB drills and drill bits, and those all have a shank that is around 3.2 millimeters in diameter and would work very well instead of these drill bits. My drill bits I obtained from Harbor Freight, but get whatever works for you. Also, I use digital calipers quite frequently. These are cheap ones that were around 5 or 6 US. And I like digital as opposed to manual, just because being able to read that, it's a lot faster to be able to read the increments that it's displaying. Finally, a little bit of some green stuff so that you can make spots where make fill-in holes and gaps where you need to, and then also a small watchmaker's hammer. I feel like the watchmaker's hammer is really an optional item, but for you, that's at your discretion, okay? As a side note, we are working with really strong magnets, so you do want to take precautions because they are really strong, especially around small children. There's a couple different sources here in the US that you could use. Most of mine come from K&J magnets. There's also the Magnet Baron that produces high quality magnets. Otherwise, you can get magnets off of Amazon, but being able to find the exact right sizes that you want can be a bit difficult sometimes. So for most of my magnetization projects, I use these 1/16 inch by 1/16 inch cylinder magnets and 3 millimeter by 2 millimeter cylinder magnets. And that's what those 3 by 2 millimeter cylinder magnets look like. So these 1/16 inch magnets are approximately 1.65 millimeters in diameter, and we can see that real quick. Turn on our calipers, and then 1.61. So they're approximately 1.6 millimeters. whereas my drill bits are 1.55. That's the closest size. So sometimes I have a little bit of struggle putting them in, but then that's why I use wooden sticks, and I also use the hammer sometimes. And then once you've got everything put together, then you'll want a sanding stick to kind of finish off everything, to make everything look nice. So we'll specifically talk about the Norn Emissary. So when you build your Norn Emissary, it'll take a little bit of time. That's totally cool. There are basically two different options, right? There's the Emissary and the Assimilator, right? And they have a variety of different options that they can use. They each have different heads that they'll use, but they use the same torso. So we'll come back and I'll show you how the magnets actually look when they're in there, right? So if we look here in the arm socket, is the magnet is sunk in there. It's been drilled, and then a spot of regular CA superglue is used. Remember, superglue will glue your skin together, so please use care. And when you've set your first magnet, it's important to establish the polarity of it. So you can set your first magnet without worrying too much about it. But when you're setting the magnets into the arms, the easiest way to do it is you'll drill your hole into the arm for where your magnet's going to set. And then you take several of your magnets that you're going to use to go into the arm socket. And after your CA glue is completely dried, you can do this. You'll set your magnet there, and you'll set your magnet into the arm, and then we'll take the part that you want to put onto the magnet, and you can force it to go into the hole that you've drilled, and then glue it as well. And then once you've got it a little bit set, you can use your fingernail to press it in. You can use a wooden stick to press it in, right? And sometimes I've had to use a hammer to help press it in to make sure that it's going to go all the way in there. Then once we've done that, we can say, all right, this arm is done. Verify that it matches up. Cool, it matches. Then we'll go and we'll repeat the process for the other arm, where again we'll set our magnets onto the torso and then put a magnet into the hole, press it in, and then use a spot of super glue to fix it in place permanently. Okay, that is magnetizing options in general. Then we'll talk about magnetizing Norn emissaries specifically. So with the emissary, you get the emissary and the assimilator kit that you can build. They have different heads. So to get that where the heads are magnetized, use some green stuff. Set your green stuff in there, allow it to harden overnight, and then the next day come back. I apologize. Set green stuff into both of your neck sockets, and this will be necessary in a second. Green stuff into both neck sockets. Come back your next day. Go ahead and drill and set your torso magnet. Once your torso magnet is drilled and set, then what you'll want to do is put a real small dot of paint on the magnet itself, and then set your head into place, and then pull it off. That way, on your next socket, you can see where it is that you're going to need to drill to put your next magnet. Now, I goofed up here. I allowed the green stuff to get pushed too far in, so then I just used 2 magnets instead of just 1 to make the connection between the torso and this head. And this is the Emissary head. For the Assimilator head, I did the exact same process, use a spot of paint, figured out where to drill, put it on there. Also, the Emissary has this hood, or I apologize, the Assimilator has this hood. I've got the hood magnetized, and the way I've done that is I've used a total of 6 1/16 inch cylinder magnets, and I've got one here, and one here. And then on the hood, I nipped off approximately 1/16 of an inch from each of these legs here, replaced it with a magnet, and then drilled a hole here for another 1/16 inch magnet. And then I've got corresponding magnets here, here, and here, again using the same process to verify that I'm got the magnet polarity proper. And then finally, setting the torso onto the legs, these 1/16 inch magnets poke out into the ball for the lower torso to connect to the upper torso. So you'll just have to clearance the lower torso so that those magnets can slip over. Finally, there's 2 more bits to magnetize. There are the shoulder talons, and it's the same process. And then finally, the chest spears. And the chest spears are a little bit difficult just because of how small the outer diameter is of these spears. But with these 1/16 inch size magnets, it is possible to do. And again, it's the same process. You set one hole, you set one magnet in each of the holes where it's supposed to go, glue it and let it set, and then come back and do the same process with the spears that we did with the arms and the talons and all those. Finally, we'll talk about using some sprue goo, right? So this is the glue that I prefer, right? Tamiya Extra Thin. But then also there you can make thick Tamiya or sprue goo by placing a few inches of sprue into a bottle of Tamiya Extra Thin. And basically what that does is it's liquid plastic, right? And then you can brush it on to these surfaces, magnets, anything that you want to cover up with what is effectively going to be plastic when it dries. The only thing is you'll want to give it an hour or 2 to dry between applications to ensure that it's fully hardened before you place the next layer on it to cover up whatever magnet or defect or a lot of times gaps on the body, seam lines. It's very effective for covering up seam lines and those sorts of things. So with that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.